This just started going around this morning, clipped from a few different sources, but we're gonna break it down and look at it because I will confess, I fell victim to it initially as well. I did. I saw these screen caps, I saw people talking about it, and I assumed that those people were accurately reporting the information, but they may not have been. What I'm referring to is this post, this screen grab from a video put together, I believe it's a Spanish like tech channel on YouTube. They do hardware reviews and game reviews on performance and stuff. But they posted this side by side talking about the performance on PlayStation 4 Silent Hill F, which as of right now seems to be getting pretty solid reviews. It's in the high 80s as of the time of the recording of this segment. Last I checked, I believe it was at 86 on Metacritic, which is a very solid score for any game. That's very, very respectable. But the reason this was going around is because it's an Unreal Engine game, okay? So the eyes are on the money when it comes to performance with any Unreal Engine game and project. And what's alleged in this post and in these screen grabs and this outlet that did the initial side by side was that it can run at upscaled 4K at 30 FPS in quality mode. To do that, it's using temporal upscalers, things like FSR, or if you're using the PS5 Pro, it's using PSSR. And it's doing that in quality mode on the base PS5, rendering starting at 720p and then upscaling to 4K. We'll talk about this in just a second, so bear with me. For the performance mode, they allege it's running at 1800p 60 locked, but it's upscaling using dynamic resolution scaling anywhere from 720p all the way down to 360p, which is crazy. And then as for the PS5 Pro, they do an upscaled 4K 60 mode, upscaling from 720p. Now, when I saw this, like I said at the top, I immediately was like, so they counted pixels, they found that? That's crazy. And I wanted to just go straight into this. Looking at it though, there are people claiming the opposite. As you can see, this has been reposted by Carson, FNAF News, your #1 source for FNAF News, saying the metrics on this Silent Hill F performance video are completely wrong. This channel has a bad track record with getting the metrics right. Don't believe everything you see, just enjoy the game. The channel also said, for example, that Dying Light the Beast was running at 576p when it was actually running at more than 1080p resolution per Digital Foundry. And he can also refer or confirm that Steel Wool confirms that SOTM is there. Once again, they did it. Congrats to Scott. So this gave me pause. Okay, I don't want to just jump on the bandwagon. Let's see how it actually performs. And as you can see, Digital Foundry has done a deep dive on this. I am much more inclined to believe Digital Foundry's testing. I actually did look into trying to do this type of testing myself, and I was like, maybe we could do it on stream. The problem is the pixel counting stuff is very, very tedious, and it's not very entertaining to watch. So I kind of gave up on that idea, but maybe we'll do it eventually. It could be interesting, but as of right now, I gave up on it. But as you can see, the video says Silent Hill F review, PlayStation 5 and PS5 Pro. Impressive on base, problems on Pro. Is this another example of a game with PSSR implementation issues? Happens to the best of us. It's part of growing older. I get it, but it feels crazy that the PlayStation 5 Pro has been like the big console for Sony for a while, like a year at this point. I don't even know when it came out, and it still feels like it has not gotten the broad support and really, really high effort implementation of ports and PS5 Pro verified or optimized that the PlayStation 4 Pro had. It felt like PlayStation 4 Pro, pretty much every game after it came out had a PS4 Pro mode, like dedicated to it, a performance set that just made it run better across the board. Maybe it was just unlocking the frame rate or whatever. But with the PS5 Pro, it seems like a lot of games, maybe not a lot, but at least a few very, very recognizable big budget, massive games run worse on PS5 Pro, which is bizarre, but we'll see what we're dealing with. Talk to me, Digital Foundry.
Konami's Silent Hill revival is in full swing. After a decade-long dormancy, we've seen a recent smattering of series content, highlighted by last year's excellent Silent Hill 2 remake.
Isn't it crazy that Konami took all this time off after Kojima left and everything. You know what they said their primary goal was from like 2015 to 2022? Their primary goal in gaming. Do you remember what it was? Do you remember? They refocused all of their efforts, all the teams that worked on console games, everything. Exactly. Pachinko game machines. And if you don't know pachinko are these like, they're mechanical games originating in Japan, used as an arcade game more frequently for gambling. They fill a niche Japanese gambling compared to that of a slot machine in the West as form low stakes, low strategy gambling. Basically, they're kind of like Japanese slot machines. So they gave up on like Silent Hill and Metal Gear to put the effort here, which is wild, but that's where they went. That's what they did. And maybe they made a lot of money doing that. I mean, obviously the company is still fine, but it's pretty remarkable that they've been able to come out of that period and then kind of get back up and rolling pretty quickly. Of course, Silent Hill 2 remake was made by somebody else, but they still supervised it. And Silent Hill F seems to be getting received really well. Metal Gear Solid Delta has been received really well despite performance issues. So it's very crazy to see how quickly they've gotten back into it.
Upcoming Silent Hill F, though, offers a full-fledged brand new Silent Hill experience, built independent of other series entries. So is Silent Hill F a successful installment in the long-running horror franchise? And how does it fare on PS5 consoles?
How do it fare? Also, just as a word of warning, apparently the IGN review has some potential spoilers, so just be aware of that if you were worried about it.
Silent Hill F is often visually arresting. This series entry is set in mid-20th century Japan, breaking from the contemporary American stylings of prior efforts. Expect a lot of organic materials, especially brownish gray woods and earth, along with sickly red flowers and green foliage.
John the Tank
donated $10 through Super Chat. I swear these screen grabs all look the same. I'm so glad I don't have an eye for frame rates. It sounds like you can't enjoy any game with an eye for that.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's why I told people, if you have a, like when I used to sell high-end like home theater setups with Magnolia Home Theater, when I worked there, I told people like, don't come in and see me and like do the whole thing, getting to look at the screens and having me explain what looks good, what looks bad. Why is this TV 100 inches and $1,800 while this one's 100 inches and it's 15,000? Like, why is there the difference? Once I explain it to you, you will never be able to unsee it, and everything for the rest of your life will look like garbage. So for a lot of people, it's nicer to live in like blissful ignorance. I'm telling you what, like honestly, if you don't have the eye for frame rates and for resolutions and stuff, appreciate that. Cherish it. Hold it near and dear to your heart, because once you've tasted the forbidden fruit, there is no going back. Same with audio. Audio, you can get used to bad audio if you stop listening to nice speakers and headphones and stuff for a while. But high-end visuals and stuff, there's no going back. There's no going back. Okay.
There are industrial touches here and there, but modern machinery is sparsely strewn, and the game's architecture is primitive. In true Silent Hill fashion, everything is blanketed in a thick haze of volumetric fog, which is omnipresent during most daytime outings. It's a very well executed look. A lot of the visual credit here goes to Epic, because this is another Unreal Engine 5 title, just like last year's Silent Hill 2 remake. The trifecta of standout UE5 technologies, Lumen, Nanite, and Virtual Shadow Maps, are in use here and define the game's presentation. F is lit often using soft, diffuse skylight, which is a lighting condition that highlights Lumen's strengths. Light fills these spaces with a kind of soft, ambient luminance that is occluded gently, which is a scenario where rasterized lighting techniques tend to fail. Expect to make out subtle occlusion in the corners of rooms, underneath roots, and around tufts of foliage, with minimal screen space artifacts.
The lighting is very, very soft, but I also think that this is part of the reason why I think a lot of people don't see the improvements or the differences. For one, these are smaller gradations of color that are very soft and are appreciable if you know what you're looking for one, and if you have a display capable of showing them. One of the problems, and I'm about to give you a little breakdown, okay? I'm about to spoil your whole world, okay? And you're never going to be the same, okay? just warning you. Everything's about to change. Your life's about to be ruined. Here we go. So there's a key difference in display technologies. Most modern TVs are working with a couple of possible technologies, okay? They're either edge lit, they're lit back with a back panel. Sometimes they call them micro LEDs. Sometimes they could call them lighting zones. There's all sorts of different names for each manufacturer. They call them different things. It's just kind of is case by case. And then there's like OLED technology. For OLEDs, each individual pixel creates its own light. And so you can have inky blacks where there is literally not a single nit of light being emitted from the corner of the screen because there is no light there. The pixel is not emitting anything. So you have amazing contrast. And in something like Silent Hill F, this will give you those really smooth gradations of color, especially if it's an HDR panel and you're playing on like a console that supports that. But it also means that the tree areas back here, the black is going to be inky back there. And that contrast is going to make it look amazing, okay? For edge lit panels, how they work is basically, does he have mini LED, OLED, quantum dot? These are all like edge lit, there you go. Basically how they work is that there are LEDs or basically a light bar at the bottom, if you think of it that way. And then that light shines up from the bottom or the top, or sometimes both. Sometimes it's from the sides. Again, it depends on the manufacturer. But this is how you'll have a TV that's typically very large and cheap. But you'll notice when there's something black on screen, it may look gray. And it's because if there's a section of black, like in the windows, it doesn't get to just turn off the light there because the stuff above it also needs to be lit. So the backlight still has to emit light, and that spreads from here, but it also spreads in the black areas, so you get a dark gray, right? And so this is also why some people, they'll have a TV where, like, you know, you're watching the show and then the credits start rolling and then it goes to black. And then it, like, the display turns off and it's like actually black. And then it maybe comes up and another piece of white text appears on the black background, but then the black background turns gray again. It's because they have to light that one thing. And because of that, they have to light the entire panel, right? And edge-lit TVs, which tend to be much, much cheaper. If you've ever bought a TV in a Walmart or in a Costco or in a Sam's Club or Target, unless it's a very nice one, like an OLED that's specifically marketed as an OLED, you're probably buying an edge-lit TV. Probably. Costco does have OLEDs, but if you've ever seen those deals where it's like, the one I mentioned earlier, I just saw a TikTok about it actually, which is why I thought of it, where they were like, wow, 100-inch TV, that's only $1,500. This is crazy. I'm living the dream. It's like, there's a reason it's cheap. As big as it is, there's a reason it's cheap. Okay. And I think the problem is that a lot of these really impressive graphical features in modern games, they can only really be appreciated with QLEDs, with like micro LED panels. Local dimming is the other thing that's very common, where they have like zones of LEDs that can be lit individually. But they can only really be appreciated with these higher end panels, which is what they're using in the studios when they develop the game. But if you're using like an edge lit panel, a lot of this detail is going to be washed out. A lot of the contrast is going to be lost. It's just not going to show up the same. And then therefore people will consume the content and find it lacking because they're like, I don't see a difference, which is true. There's nothing wrong with that because they're accurately reporting it. They do not see a difference. The improvements were made for the people that could afford the nicer, higher end TVs that would show it, and so it's just a different thing. Talk about mini LED too. Mine uses mini LED and it's amazing. Well, yeah, exactly. So the age old thing is that OLEDs are great for dark spaces, like home theaters. If you have if you're lucky enough to have one, something like that. Not a lot of ambient light, not a lot of windows, sliding glass door, that type of thing. If you have a room in the basement, OLEDs are great for that. If you have a lot of ambient light and it's bright in the room, projectors are a bad idea. And also, OLEDs will do fine. They'll be perfectly fine. But the best case scenario is like a mini LED, or like QLED is another one Samsung markets that way. but those are very, very bright while achieving very close to the same contrast levels as an OLED. And they're also fantastic. So yeah, the best TVs on the market right now, I believe, are typically rated as the QLED panels. If you want to know where your TV ranks, you can actually just go to RTings. They do fantastic reviews and stuff of these types of devices. Yeah, the best one they rated was the Samsung S95F OLED. Not a QLED this year. OLED. Booyah. Booyah. But you can see they tested in mixed usage, home theater spaces, bright rooms, sports, gaming, all for different uses. So you can pick which one you like. So shout out RTings. They do very good work. Anyway, continuing. Sorry. All of this to say, the reason I brought this up, isn't this a gaming channel? How dare you? It's a Luke ADHD channel. You should know that by now. The reason I bring this up is because they have made graphical improvements in these games, whether it's Silent Hill F or some of these other games where people are like, it doesn't look any different. It does. It does. But there's a lot of people who very accurately are reporting that they don't see the improvements. They don't see the difference because they don't. You know, it's not one of those things where it's like, you're lying. It's like, no, they literally do not see a difference because they didn't feel like they needed to spend $3,000 on a new TV. Fair. Okay. So it's not unreasonable for them to say that they don't see a lot of improvements graphically, you know, from generation to generation, because they just don't. Anyway.
It's the software lumen version of the technique though, which does have a tendency to darken shadowed regions excessively, though typically in a pleasing way. There's some minor image breakup here and there as well.
Just letting you know, please, Digital Foundry, can you, instead of pleasing way, can you say pleasurable way? I need it in that like very calm, monotone delivery. And they're just like, yeah, and then they darken these areas of the screen in a very pleasurable way. I just need that in my life. It's like, and I found this scene very pleasurable.
But relative to other games that use software lumen, I think F fares quite well. Certain lumen pain points, like small emissive lights, aren't so common here. Silent Hill F also features lumen reflections. These generally add a good amount of perspective correct depth to scenes that feature water or other glossy surfaces, though typical software
glossy surfaces. It's got to be blood, right? Maybe he's referring to blood. Maybe he's just talking about water and like shiny stuff, but I don't know, it's got to be blood.
Where lumen concessions are visible. Expect to make out blobby silhouettes of trees and buildings here, but skinned meshes are only reflected in screen space. And oddly, the surface color is usually not apparent in these lumen reflections. And
Weird.
Because the SSR samples the scene before fog is applied, there's often a considerable mismatch between the appearance of the scene and the reflection detail, even when the shot can rely on SSR. Virtual shadow maps tie the visuals together. F makes heavy use of UE5's shadow map ray tracing to soften and diffuse shadows as they fall away from the occluding object.
That does look
which
very
creates beautiful results in this window-lit interior scene.
I don't care. She moves weird. Spoken like a true X user. I love it, Fearless Dodo. I don't care. She walks weird. Refunding. Get out of here.
The combination of sharp detail with excellent diffusion attracts the eyes, in situations where cascaded shadow maps would falter. Nanite gives the game's geometry continuous LOD behavior, though it would be pretty hard to make out discrete LOD steps anyways, owing to poor visibility in most areas. The game doesn't necessarily have that pin-sharp film quality Nanite look that we find in various UE5 tech demos, but art assets are generally sculpted to a reasonable level of quality. Silent Hill F hits visual highs in its fog-soaked...
Rock's not sharp enough, not rocky enough. It's terrible. I did see, actually, maybe I can find it. Maybe if you guys can find after I describe it, you should send it to me on the Discord so that we can look at it. But I did see a really compelling thread on X like 6 months ago, and I kind of logged into my brain and I didn't really process it. But basically their argument was that Krabby Digital Foundry, and then like a lot of these comparisons and comparison videos have kind of ruined a lot of people's ability to just appreciate games. Because instead of just playing the game and appreciate it, they start to look for like these plots or these holes within the presentation, and that can mean that they just don't enjoy it as much because they're looking for things to have a problem with. And I can see how that argument could be made. I think it's tricky though, because it's like, okay, what do we do with that information? I think what Digital Foundry has done is it's given people the ability to put words and describe what they're seeing and what they're feeling in a way that they weren't able to before. You know, people might have played a game before and been like, it just looks kind of blurry. They don't realize, oh, that's specifically because of the temporal upscalers and the over reliance on those to hit frame rate targets. And so it's given them vocabulary, but I don't think anything is like fundamentally changed. But I think it's an interesting topic at the very, very least. And I think that's why the discourse about performance has really spiked in the last year and a half. For one, because games continue to run really, really poorly this late in the generation, despite not really looking that much better. And two, because I think that people have a lot more, they have a broader vocabulary because it's discussed more, and so that leads to more discussion and discourse about it. I think it's part of it. Why do they always just show off scenes where they're just walking or jogging? Let me see how it handles combat when it's really being tested. I don't care about that puddle. Well, right now he's just describing the sort of graphical repertoire of the game, so he's breaking it down piece by piece, and then I'm sure when they get into performance metrics they're going to show some of those sequences, but part of it is that they have to be able, like here it's running and moving around. Part of it is that they just have to be able to repeat it. So it's not fair to compare like the PS5 Pro played this sequence this way, but then you don't repeat it exactly the same. That's just unreasonable. Let's forward through again to see what else to say about specific performance.
On PlayStation 5, Silent Hill F offers a performance mode and a quality mode. Underlying visual settings seem similar between the two mode variants, outside of some minor changes to Lumen GI. Quality mode has a subtly different appearance if we flash back and forth, but there are no categorical changes, I would say. This doesn't quite track with titles like...
You can see like little, like in the cups, I'm seeing a little bit of difference, but really not that much. There's some games where you go performance mode to quality mode and it's night and day, like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. That game going from performance to quality, night and day. With this, it's really hard to see the difference, you know? Like it's like there's little gradations and light differences, but really not bad. I would just play this on performance mode, honestly.
Mafia: The Old Country.
But like you brought up, maybe it's different in combat. Maybe that's when you see the resolution plummet.
Or Clair Obscur Expedition 33, where close-range traces appeared absent in their performance modes. Lumen reflections only have subtle differences as well. Here, I think the clarity of the reflection is determined by the quality of the SDF representation and the roughness of the reflective material, and less by the resolution of any ray tracing. It's possible that other common UE5 tweaks, like a lowered roughness cutoff, might be in the mix here, but if so, it's not obvious. Volumetric effects are lower quality in the performance mode, which is obvious in the low resolution artifacts that pop up when the fog intersects with the floor here.
See, dude, that's the stuff that I can't stand. This is the stuff that gives me an aneurysm the moment I see it. I don't know. Is this just me? Do you guys does this trigger the crap out of you? Like, I struggle with this, man. When I'm just standing there, even if she does walk weird, the the flickering fog and details, it just really, I don't know if I'm OCD or what, but that does just, I just can't. It's just me. Well, that's good.
The floor here. Other effects that typically scale with resolution seem to differ as well, like VSM quality, though spotting differences is surprisingly challenging. I did spot one difference in VSM coverage in this shot, however. Image quality is really the primary differentiator here. Performance mode is soft but stable, with a 1080p.
We can fix you, Luke. I don't think you can.
like resolve, judging from comparisons to the PC code. Internal resolutions here fall around 1080p as well. Okay. I think TSR is the image treatment of choice based on certain artifact patterns in the final image. F looks quite soft in performance mode, but it's a low contrast haze-ridden game, so I think this image treatment fares fine. Quality mode is sharper, resolves more detail, and has fewer artifacts. We're looking at a 1440p internal resolution typically, with a 1440p-like final image that probably uses TSR. Again, judging from comparisons with PC. For console UE5 software, we'd usually expect games to go up a step. perhaps targeting 1440p in performance mode and 4K in quality mode, and I would be curious to see what Silent Hill would look like with more aggressive upscaling behavior. In performance mode, you should expect a mostly locked 60 FPS update. Silent Hill F was probably built with a close eye on PS5 frame rates throughout development, because it essentially never runs into GPU limited constraints. Unfortunately, F does suffer from traversal stutters, which typically pop up in more open areas.
Classic.
These are sometimes coupled with delta time wobbles, which cause the game to decelerate and accelerate oddly when drops occur. But these problems aren't a major issue in most areas. Expect to see fairly regular drops when roaming around the town in later chapters, but enclosed areas are typically fine, and earlier game content is generally satisfactory. In cinematic sequences, however,
That is crazy. Dude, I totally understand the concerns around The Witcher 4, given how even like Borderlands is really struggling with traversal stutter and stuff. Like Unreal has got to figure it out. This has been a thing, what for like a year and a half, 2 years that people keep talking about traversal stutter, and it's still a problem. Like, I am not a software engineer. I am not a graphics engineer or programmer. I will not pretend to know how you fix that. I am far too stupid to know how to do that. But bro, everybody agrees this is a problem. Everybody. And it's to the point where people see UE5 tied next to a game. Like, you know, they do the logo splash screen. Coming December 15th. And coming to these consoles. Unreal Engine logo. People immediately roll their eyes and sigh now. It's too bad. Yeah, UE slop is a meme now. Or what was the other one? There's another one. I don't remember what it was, like stutter. I don't know. Unreal stutter. And I don't remember what it was, but there's all sorts of memes tied to it, specifically over the bad performance in open world games. And so for The Witcher 4, I'm like, they know about it for sure. They got to figure it out. Sneaky pickle Luke, if you can't run it, just refund it, like Randy said. I love the occasional insinuations. He never outright said it, but the occasional insinuations that if you can't run the game, that it's because you don't have a nice enough computer, and he, like, low key you're broke. It was very funny because it was like, he's not saying that, but he's also not saying that, you know? Like
the game falls to 30 FPS. Quality mode predictably rises above these issues for the most part.
Phantom Blade uses a custom version of UE5 apparently. I will say the times I've tried Phantom Blade, it just keeps getting more and more impressive, and it just runs better and better and better and better. So we'll see how it ends up in the final version, but I believe whatever wizardry they're working on with that, I'm sure it's going to be pretty well executed.
By targeting a lower refresh. F has no problem reaching 30 FPS.
Wait, Randy did say stay broke or stay hating? Really? Okay. Maybe he did actually say it and I missed it. That's crazy, dude.
Vast majority of the time, with the exception of a few hitches that still breach 33 millisecond frame times. The game's initial running animation does have an issue in quality mode though, where the player appears to sharply decelerate briefly before returning to full speed.
Dude, I thought you were just memeing. Wait, who said that? Who said that? Who was the one earlier who was like, she runs weird, I'm not buying? Who was that? Hold on. I gotta apologize, man. I did not realize that she actually ran stupid. I didn't realize. Can I not see it? You guys talk too much. I can't see. Oh, Fearless Dodo. That's it. Fearless Dodo. Thank you. I am sorry. I'm sorry for alleging that you were just an ex-user finding things to be upset about. I did not realize that she ran like she had a Lego in her left shoe. I'm sorry. And I hope you'll forgive me. He's right though. There is a weird stutter when they're running, like every once in a while, it's like a little off. It's really weird.
The game's initial running animation does have an issue in quality mode though, where the player appears to sharply decelerate briefly before returning to full speed. This is a distracting issue and it makes the quality mode a bit less enjoyable to play.
What is that?
Unfortunately, PS5 Pro does not fare particularly well with Silent Hill.
That is so weird. There was also an issue. Do you guys remember the Silent Hill 2 remake? There was also an issue with that where it was specifically the animation, like there was an animation timing thing, broken animations.
The game also suffers from animation smoothness issues, pretty much exactly like I saw in Jedi Survivor. And this surprised me. And in my testing, I think this affects both console and PC, but I can only say with great certainty that something is really wrong on PC. And let me tell you about that. Now, to show you what I mean, let's look at the Ryzen 7 7800X3D's performance again. As I showed off earlier, going down that hill in the intro to the game shows frame time spikes on all machines, and on the 7800X3D, they are pretty short actually. When CPU limited, I measured them to being at the highest, a little bit below 25 milliseconds. Now, usually if you saw frame time spikes up to something like 25 milliseconds, the logical assumption for a player would be, okay, let's cap the frame rate to 30 FPS to get a perfectly smooth experience, because none of the stutters, which are 25 milliseconds, would exceed the 33.3 milliseconds of the 30 FPS frame rate cap. The frame rate cap will essentially hide unevenness in frame times.
Right.
Well, that is not what happens in this game. Check out this footage of the game running on the 7800X3D again, but capped at 30 FPS running down the hill. Take note how it doesn't look smooth at all. There are multiple moments where the animation jumps, rapidly accelerating, and it looks like some sort of frame time hitch has occurred. That should not be the case though. And in fact, looking at the frame rate and frame time reading, we can see that the game is a flawless 30 FPS where each frame is perfectly spaced with 33.3 milliseconds.
Look
the thing
at that.
is, the animation of the frames is heavily flawed. And this is not the first time I've seen this in an Unreal Engine game, and this behavior perturbs me greatly as it goes against all of my knowledge about how animation in games should be handled. I had a hunch as to what the problem might
That's
be
crazy,
based
dude.
upon a blog I recently read from Daniel Holden, who works at Epic in animation. Basically, the blog describes something about how delta time is flawed. You don't need to know too much about this, but delta time is essentially the way a game engine can slice up the time for rendering when the frame time is variable so that animations still smoothly animate. In this blog, Daniel points out that the way people and game developers have accounted for variable frame time for animation has been a poor fit in the past, and it has led perhaps to unnecessary animation stutter. The problem is what Daniel is talking about in his blog is actually in reference to frame times exceeding the cap set.
That's great. In essence, it's busted. So all of this to say, Unreal Engine and also Konami things specifically have previously had animation hitching weirdness. And in this video from almost exactly a year ago, October 12th, 2024, he was already outlining this problem and was describing it in Silent Hill 2 Remake. And he's finding that it's a problem in the documentation for Epic or for Unreal Engine from Epic directly. And they're even having these issues and describing them as well, which is crazy. It's crazy. Viking King, not Viking King, it's V. V King, Darkers. Thank you for the sub, and NTS Empty also. Thank you for the sub. So it's an Unreal Engine problem. All of that to say, it's an Unreal Engine problem. So maybe that's the same thing that's going on here with Silent Hill. It's also a weirdness with how it's handling delta time. I don't know. But also another issue with Unreal. Like the thing with Unreal is it's a very powerful engine. It's important not to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Yes, there's performance issues, but it is a very powerful piece of hardware or software, and it is capable of putting together some amazing games with comparatively low effort compared to having like your own engine that you run in house, which is why everybody's switching to it, because it makes sense monetarily. It helps with talent because you can have somebody that you just hired right out of school and they've already been trained on Unreal Engine, so you don't have to teach them how to use your tools. There's a lot of advantages to it, but it is far from perfect. And there are major issues like this that have been known and discussed for a long time. And, they got to address them. They got to fix it. Like, come on.
The developers have elected to take a familiar approach here.
Elden Ring wasn't on UE5. Yeah, it's also frame limited. That's my frustration with From Software stuff. It's all frame limited to 60, except for Armored Core 6. That can go to 120 frames a second. But even on like the highest of the high-end PCs, you can't play Elden Ring above 60. You can mod it to tweak it and make it happen, but it causes issues with the AI if you unlock the frame rate and go above 60. There's all sorts of problems with it. It's really weird.
Consolidating their mode offerings into a single, enhanced mode with PSSR, targeting 60 FPS. PSSR, unfortunately, does not work well at all with this title, producing an artifact-ridden image. Expect to see a constant peppering of coarse noise, with pulsing, strobing artifacts in areas, with occluders.
I prefer throbbing, with pulsing, throbbing noise. Dude, they need to hire me just to go through their scripts again, but add a lot of like sexual tension into the dialogue. I think that would help. That would help a lot. It's like, yeah, I find this image very pleasurable, but this image from the PSSR version and from the PS5 Pro leaves me throbbing and pulsating, heaving.
Noise, with
viscous,
pulsing, strobing artifacts in areas,
throbbing,
with occluders like grass or debris.
Ugh.
PSSR doesn't.
Gross, icky. It looks bad. Oh my god. Oh my god, yeah, that looks stupid. That's bad.
Seem to like ray tracing effects, which require amortization and cleanup over many frames. And here I think we're finding some unfortunate interactions with Lumen GI here. I don't have a firm confirmation that the game is using PSSR and PS5 Pro, but these blemishes strongly suggest the technique. Internal resolutions come in a bit above 1080p here typically. Finding good pixel counts is tough in Silent Hill F because motion blur cannot be turned off on either PS5 system, so it's only possible to get a rough read on the game's internal counts in select shots. It's hard to guess at the output res, but PS5 Pro looks closer to the PS5 quality mode if I pull out still frames. The settings here otherwise seem similar to the PS5 modes. And when these modes have meaningfully different settings, it seems to shade closer to the PS5 performance mode. I don't have any problem if developers want to simplify their mode offerings for PS5 Pro users, and I don't have an issue necessarily with using PSSR. But if developers are going to make large changes for PS5 Pro users, they should ensure those changes produce an improvement over PS5. I'd rather have no Pro enhancement here, or ideally have a version of the game with boosted resolution figures while retaining TSR.
Yeah, like it literally looks worse because he's saying that the resolutions are pretty much comparable. This one just uses PSSR and tries to crank it up to a higher resolution because he said the PS5 quality mode is basically 1440 by his guesstimations, comparing it to the PC version. But like the PS5 Pro version literally looks worse. It's got the flickering, throbbing, pulsating undulations. Is that a word? I feel like that's a word. I've heard that somewhere. And it feels appropriate. You know, when you're like, I don't know what a word means, but it feels like that word fits here. That's where I feel like with undulations. I'm scared to Google it though, being honest. But like, it is crazy that like it just looks worse. Like the more expensive version of the game, you're playing it on a $750 console and it looks worse than the $550 console. You know, it's just wild, man.
Frame rates on PS5 Pro prove similar to the base PS5 performance mode. Expect a locked 60 FPS update absent momentary hitches that stem from traversal hiccups. As a general rule, expect that interiors will mostly be fine and that wobbles will be more noticeable when running through the town area in later chapters.
That's the really frustrating thing about the UE5 stutter thing, is that it affects the most high-end hardware just as bad as the low-end hardware. Like there is no escape. You know, some optimization issues you can just brute force your way through and you can manage it just fine. Like, yeah, it doesn't run great, but if I have enough firepower and enough or horsepower, I can get it working well enough to enjoy. But with stuttering, like these are engine issues with how it's like pre-compiling shaders as you enter areas and how it's kind of getting all of its ducks in a row before you move into the next zone of the map. And there is no getting around it. Whether you have a PS5 Pro or a 5090, like you're all going to experience it the exact same way. It's just, there is no escape. It's very frustrating. Silent Hill QA be like, that's enough. Well, to a certain extent, like the animation hitch, that very well could be like an Unreal Engine issue. From what we saw with Silent Hill 2, it could be another issue with that, where it literally is beyond their control. And by the time they realize that that's a problem, there's not much they can do. It's interesting that he said it's specifically tied to the quality mode, not the performance mode, which is strange. And that gives me hope that they can fix it. But yeah, when you have animations starting to break down based on the frame rate you're targeting, like, what are we doing? And then the PS5 Pro pisser variation of the game has like the crazy flickering, throbbing, pulsating, undulating protuberance, and it's just really bizarre. You know, it's a lot of other stuff they've done in the game is really impressive. Clearly it runs at a stable 60 until it doesn't, but they tried to build it around 60 frames. But again, it's just, it's frustrating that we are kind of being asked as consumers to just kind of hand wave it away, or to just go, it's good enough. Like, I can deal with it. When it's like, you're literally buying a product. You know, I just had this debate with somebody the other day. Not even a debate, we were talking. Not everything's a debate, Luke, but I was just talking to somebody about this the other day, because I find it really frustrating. As you guys know, I'm involved in like local theaters and stuff. Used to do a lot of plays and musicals and everything, and I've been kind of out of the game since COVID because I had to find a big boy job and all of that. So I got a made up job. But I was talking to somebody because they were like, it's really important to support local theater and to support the arts and stuff. And I was like, I've always found that weird when people say that. It's not about necessarily just supporting, because supporting sounds like charity. You know, you're not here to support the game or support Konami or support Silent Hill. They're selling you a product. Same with the theater that's putting on the musical or the play. They're selling you something. I understand the desire to be able to just do whatever you want and make whatever you want. But at the end of the day, let's deal with reality. It's a product. They're selling you, okay? As much as you are personally, like, emotionally attached to Silent Hill or Konami or whatever, your duty is not to support, because it's not a charity. Like, they're selling you a product, and they might use the verbiage and shift it around. But like, you remember that there was a whole scandal because I heard my mom talk about it, because my mom really likes Pixar movies. They had a new movie called Elio, and Elio flopped cataclysmically. And it's because, like, look at this. This was on the official Pixar page, okay? The official Pixar, like, Instagram page. And this is what they said, okay?
Check it out.
Stop complaining that Disney doesn't make original stories if you don't show up to movie theaters and support them in the first place. Who said that? Oh my gosh. I thought I was the only one in my car. But anyways, there's a new original story. Look at that. From Disney Pixar called Elio. You should go ahead and support it. It comes out this Friday. So yeah, you should go to movie theaters. Thank you.
Post it.
Like, trying to badmouth you and bash you for not supporting original storytelling. So it's your fault if it flops. And then, yeah, you shouldn't ask for that ever again. It's like, no, it's not about supporting. You're selling me a product. If the movie is stupid, if the movie's bad, or I'm not interested in the movie, that's not my fault. That's your fault. Like, you're selling me a product. You're trying to get me to buy a ticket to your movie. Like, how dare you badmouth me or like say that it's my fault when you failed to do something that interested me or compelled me. And in the case of some of these games, it's like, we shouldn't have to settle and just be like, it's good enough. I'll support this game. You shouldn't feel the need to support. Support is a word for charity. And we're talking about multi-billion-dollar corporations. Okay? Like, they are not your friends. They're doing fine. They'll be okay. But if something runs poorly to the point where you find it upsetting or frustrating, you shouldn't just think of it as like, I'll support it. Demand that they fix it, and they'll fix it. Pretty self-explanatory. Now, for a lot of people, I think if you're playing on base PS5 and everything, this performance, from what I'm seeing, is perfectly fine. I mean, the difference between performance and quality modes being barely noticeable. I would just play it on performance mode on the PS5. And I mean, yeah, there's occasional like 1 or 2 frame stutter when you're going from different zones in the open world, in the larger areas of the map, rather. That is far from like game breaking. I think that's totally manageable. And for a lot of people, they would not know it's there unless they had watched this video. Like, just honestly, this flickering is more of an issue for me. That might make me swap to quality mode for this sequence, but these are not major issues. Because as with all things, there's gradations of offenses, right? There's things that are barely noticeable, not really a big deal. There's other things that are major deals that are much more distracting and problematic. But I think for a lot of people, this is going to be perfectly fine, and they probably would not notice most of these things unless they watched a video like this. But not just for this game, for every other game that's been having performance issues or that's been having issues just in general, whether it be bugs or port issues or whatever, optimization issues, don't just settle for good enough. Don't just settle for that. Don't settle at all. Like, they're selling you a product, okay? If I'm going to buy a car and it's like, no, it gets really good gas mileage most of the time, but like once every week it plummets to like a mile a gallon. But other than that, it works great. And then it's back to normal. Like, it's okay if you're like, I'm going to look at a different model of car. That's okay, because you're buying a product. So if it's not what you're looking for, at least not right now until they fix it, just take a breather. It's fine. It's totally fine. But going back to what this all started with, which was this post, as we heard, the resolutions that Digital Foundry was testing did not approach anywhere near 360p. And they're saying 720p to 360p, going up to 1800p. Literally none of that is in line with what Digital Foundry has said. And Digital Foundry's not perfect. They're not immune to mistakes, but they do have a much more, I think, impressive track record and a track record of accuracy. So I'm much more inclined to believe Digital Foundry than these posts that are going around Reddit and X right now. So it seems like the 4K variation in the quality mode is probably upscaling. Like he said, it's hitting somewhere around 1440p. It might be hitting 1080p starting resolution, upscaling to 1440p, or maybe he meant 1440 going up to 4K. Who can say, until we get specific pixel counting and stuff. Maybe with some console tools to disable motion blur or something, we could do that. But the point is, it's nowhere near as bad as this picture makes it look. And that's the big takeaway, I think. That's the big takeaway. Shout out to Carson with FNAF News for calling this out and letting people know that it's not accurate, because based on what Digital Foundry is saying, it is not accurate. And I'm more inclined to believe Digital Foundry than these random pictures and stuff. So I appreciate it. As for everything else, Silent Hill F is looking really, really good. I'm excited to give it a shot. It launches on the 25th, I believe. And I'm not sure if they have a separate early access before this, but we'll see. I'm excited to give it a shot. It seems very, very interesting. I probably won't be playing it on the PS5 Pro. I'll probably be looking for a PC version of the game. But other than that, hopefully they can fix it up. They do have early access on the 23rd. Hell yeah. So tomorrow. Maybe it unlocks later tonight. I'm not sure, but